Welcome back to the relay throw. And Aidan, our first time co-host.
Yep.
Welcome, first off.
Happy to be here.
We have a very special guest with us today.
We do.
Probably more known as a multi-sport athlete than anything else, I'd say. He swims, he bikes, he runs.
Does everything.
Iron
Man, really, is what they call him.
I saw him shooting hoops the other day.
That's right.
We got the president.
None of these things well.
Well, I think we can make a case for you.
An athlete is an athlete.
That's what I'm
We'll
saying.
go with that.
We are very fortunate to have Kevin Weinman, president of Marist, with us today. So
We had strobe lights and disco lights.
yeah, that would be
Oh,
cool.
Friday.
I think
There you go.
All right.
Nice.
something like that. But
That
welcome
that
on.
Sounded genuine. That sounded
Yeah, no,
genuine.
it's a real applause. Yeah, we got a big crowd. I wish we had a live audience. Maybe in a little bit,
true.
get the masses. But welcome on. Thank you for
Thanks
joining
having
us.
me. Yeah, this is great to be here.
It's been a long time coming, and we talked earlier, a few months ago about this and just about the Notre Dame game and everything Marist Athletics related, and it's been super cool to set this up, and we thank you for all the support over this semester. So
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
but I guess I'll lead off. I think first question I have to ask about is how much practice did you have before that 3-point contest with Erin? Because you gave her a run for her money. You made a shot.
Well,
in that
it was-
left wing.
Yeah,
So
carefully edited. We didn't show every shot. The first shot was an epic air ball, and that literally was the first time I had shot a basketball in a long time. I shot around a little bit beforehand just to make sure that I could get the release down.
right.
It didn't help any.
Former basketball athlete.
That would be a stretch. I peaked at junior varsity, Kinnelon High School.
Okay.
I think I went 1 for 11 from the free throw line that my sophomore year, and then I decided I needed to work and make some money, and I gave up basketball for a part-time job my junior and senior year.
I mean, like I said, you made the shot, so I think that's all that counts.
I did. They didn't have to edit that. That actually was
that went in.
shot.
Yeah, I was wondering because there are multiple cameras. I'm like, that definitely went in though. That 100%, I know for sure.
Like the Steph Curry commercial where he shoots it from full court and then it goes in.
Yeah, right. No, that was.
They were prepared to use special effects, but they didn't.
Yeah.
They didn't have to. We got one to go down.
Right. I wanted to ask about that series between Two Foxes. I know it's more general than like Marist Athletics figures, but you started out with Dowdy, who obviously big step for her this year. But what's kind of been your approach to your relationship with athletics this year and going forward, like just being like in the athletics realm?
Yeah, good question. I try and speak to our coaches and athletes as much as possible. I have so much respect for how hard they work and what they do, particularly the student athletes, right, who have to carry the same course load as any student, but they're practicing 20 hours a week. They're dealing with 6-hour bus rides to Buffalo and to Maryland. They're dealing with physical injuries, the mental challenges of being an athlete at the highest level. So anytime I can be with them and in their space and show my support, I'm eager to do it. The same way I am for music students, for theater students, for students who are pouring themselves into their work in and out of the classroom. But athletics has a special place in my heart for sure, given the demands of being a D1 athlete at a college like Marist.
Let's dig deep into that, your love for sports. You started as the Mustangs, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to give up why I know the Mustangs, whether it's because I did my diligent research or if I'm from Randolph, New Jersey. So I know Kinnelon pretty well.
So they were the Colts when I was there. I don't
Really?
know if they've changed their name,
Yeah.
but I'm a proud Kinnelon Colt class
There you
of
go.
class of '89.
So it could be from when you were at Kinnelon High School. It could be earlier. How did your love for sports first begin?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a good answer for that question because my favorite sport has always been ice hockey, even though I've never played beyond some pond hockey growing up when the ponds actually still froze over in northern Jersey. So I began, this pains me to say, but I began as a Rangers fan back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then when the Colorado Rockies moved to New Jersey to become the New Jersey Devils in '82, is when I latched on to them, and I've been watching every game ever since. But one of the rare hockey fans and hockey parents who's never actually played the game in an organized way. my own focus on athletics mostly was running. So I ran cross country and track. I was a middle distance runner. We had about 12 people on our track team, really small team, so I had to basically do everything. I ran the 400, the 800, the 1600, the 4x4 relay. And dual meets at the high school level are like an hour and a half. So that's a lot of high intensity running to do in a really short window of time. But I loved it and have been a runner and an endurance athlete ever since. To diminishing levels of quality as I have less time and I'm getting older. But
Yeah.
Right. I on that bio, it's funny the like the 10 things about Kevin Weinman. It's funny because like half of them are about athletics, and it's just like this is why we have to push for you to be a multi-sport athlete. But I really was fascinated by like being a hockey family despite not playing hockey.
Right.
And how does your family life kind of have to do with that? Because I think both your kids play hockey.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like from being not even affiliated with the sport at all to like a full blown ice hockey family. I think is fascinating. So maybe talk about what that means to your family life.
Yeah, that's a great question because we're recent empty nesters now, but hockey's been a huge part of our lives for years and years and years, and we miss it dearly. Because every weekend for 6 months a year, we're crisscrossing New England with our son Alex or our daughter Brooke, playing club hockey, playing hockey for their respective high schools. So when you love the game of hockey, you realize that kids need to get on skates at like 3. So we put our son on skates. We live in Colorado Springs. Back in the 2000s, he was learning how to skate at age 3 and 4, and mites and squirts, peewees, bantams, all the way throughout. And we loved it. We spent so much time together as a family, going to and from games, weekend tournaments. So much fun, both the games themselves, but the players and families hanging out together in the hotel. Just really great memories. It's not for the faint of heart because it's so demanding with respect to time and miles on the road, but I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah,
Good
absolutely.
bonding experience too. Like
For sure.
I've done travel ball my whole life, and when you're on the road, there's not much else to do besides have a conversation. I mean, some people obviously are attached to their phones now, and you probably don't get that. But whether it be your kids playing or you watching live games, what are some of your fondest memories of just sports in general?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, there's really 2 different questions there, right? Because nothing compares to enjoying a game with that your kids are playing in, right? So of course we remember the big goals and the games where they won the tournament or won the league title and so forth. But it really is, as you said before, the bonds, the interactions, the friendships that we made along the way. In terms of being a fan, of course, you remember the championships won. So the Devils have 3 Stanley Cups.
Yep.
I'm a big Mets fan, so Mets Red Sox. I remember exactly where I was in 1986.
Oh, that's painful for me.
You weren't even alive.
I wasn't
then.
alive,
You're
but
not
my father. So my dad's a Mets fan.
Yeah.
So and I'm a Sox fan. Grew up in New Hampshire, so that one's. He lets me know about that one.
All right.
Hold
Well, I
that over
probably
you for a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm also a Giants fan, so I probably had a couple games over you
Well,
there as well. The 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah. Well, thanks for winning last week. That's what I just told Anthony.
To get a better draft pick. That's it, right? Yeah. What have things come to when Giants and Patriots fans are watching a game hoping to lose to get a better draft pick?
It's miserable, but I don't like. It's funny because I've only lived on this earth for 2 decades, and that's the 2 decades where I've been really spoiled as a sports fan. So it's like now it's like things are creeping down. It's like, well, you just have to appreciate the highs, and
Well, living in New England before coming here to Marist 2 years ago, I had to experience all the Boston sports success as a New York sports fan. I'm surrounded by New Englanders, so extremely painful. And most folks of your vintage, don't realize just how bad Boston sports was in the decades before the last 2 decades, which have been, truly magical with all 4 teams winning titles at various times.
What was the experience like for you when your teams were winning the titles? You said you knew exactly where you were. What was that like when the Mets won against the Red Sox?
Yeah.
When the Devils were winning all their Stanley Cups with Marty? I remember Marty. Oh my God, he was so good.
We miss him dearly.
Yeah, definitely. He should come out of retirement right now. But what were those experiences like when your teams were winning?
Yeah, it's every one of my favorite teams was at the bottom of the standings when I became a fan. So the Devils, it took them 6 years to even make the playoffs. The Mets were last place every year, and growing up in the New York City metro area, I grew up in northern New Jersey. Um, it's a divided place, right? It's not like growing up in New Hampshire where every single person's a fan
Oh,
of the
yeah.
Boston teams. In the New York area,
Yep.
most folks were Yankees fans. Most folks were Rangers fans, right? So um, when my teams were terrible, really sticking with them made it all the more sweet when they actually started winning, because
Mhm.
I endured a lot of bad seasons, and I could have easily been a fan of the better team in the New York metro area. But so it just made, when the Mets won in '86 and the Devils won in '95, Giants won in '86 and again in '91. Very, very special experiences for me because I had lived through the tough years, and watching my friends enjoy more success with their favorite teams.
Rewarded your loyalty. I wanted to ask if you had like a specific sports figure that you kind of, I don't want to say idolized, but looked up to growing up. Obviously, being a New York sports fan, is there someone that comes to mind, or maybe a sports memory that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, when you follow the teams that closely, you grow fond of them as people in addition to players. So Chico Resch was the goalie for the Devils way back when, and I, as an 8, 10-year-old kid, I would send letters to players and ask for autographs, and Chico would always not only send back an autograph, but some commentary to my questions. And I still have his letters at home, and just thought it was so cool that this person that I watch on TV is actually spending a little bit of time engaging with me as a fan. So most folks, he does radio announcing for the Devils now, but he's not, he never was an all-star or a Hall of Famer, but he's always special to me because of his kindness and generosity back. You mentioned Marty Brodeur before. What an epic sports figure. He's got records nobody will ever touch because the game has changed. He changed the game himself with his stick handling and the trapezoid. Now you can't play the puck in the corners because he was so good at it. So he was just terrific to watch, and very spoiled for 20 years to have him tending the net for the Devils.
Yeah, for sure. Was hockey the first sport that you ever loved, or was it something before that?
I mean, probably baseball as well. My dad was a Mets fan, and my grandmother, who lived with us, watched every game religiously. So, and baseball was the one game that my dad would take us to. So we went to Shea Stadium a few times watching the Mets growing up. I've always liked pro football, but it's never been at the same level as baseball and hockey. My parents were not hockey fans. They could not understand why I love this game, where they thought the players fought more than they actually skated, and maybe back then that was actually true. So it wasn't until I was a teenager and would go to Devils games in Brendan Byrne Arena with my sister.
That's crazy.
Which was a lot of fun.
Football, I feel like, is the easier sport to follow out of all of those three, but you're doing the due diligence of following 162 and all the hockey games within the season. So good for you. I mean, I would say that I'm more of a playoff hockey watcher than a regular season watcher, which I think there's a lot of people are. But baseball and hockey particularly are starting to expand and grow with all the network deals that they're doing. So as a fan of those two sports, how does that make you happy? Like that the sports are growing from a level that hasn't been seen before.
Yeah, I mean, not to keep talking about hockey, but you're living in the Carolinas for a few years and having the Hartford Whalers move down to Raleigh was a big move from the NHL to bring the sport to new cities. Right, we now have teams in Arizona and Texas, North Carolina, Florida. None of those teams existed in those regions when I was growing up. So it was great to see as I moved out of the Northeast, the sport really grew to become a nationwide sport. 162 games for baseball. I don't have the time anymore to follow it that closely, and the Mets always disappoint. So it's been harder to be a true dedicated fan watching all the games, and with the short playoff series, it's crazy. You go through 6 months thinking your team's the best team, and then 5 games later they're done, like the Braves this year were.
Yep.
So. really just waiting for the playoffs for baseball at this point is more how I take in the game.
That's fair. You might have a bit on your plate, so that might be that's probably a fair assessment versus us who are sports communication majors, and that's kind of part of
your family business,
part of the job, part of knowing the industry. Speaking of living in the Carolinas, and I wanted to kind of transition to college.
Yeah.
Talking a bit about your college fandom, or just sports in general. Your wife went to UNC.
She did,
and I was wondering, there has to be some sort of rivalry that still exists, maybe in the as far as sports teams go, with within the ACC world.
Well, what's interesting is, I've always adored UNC myself.
Okay.
I highlighted during my inauguration speech that it was the school I wanted to go to, and I didn't get in.
Right.
I went to Notre Dame instead. So it was somewhat ironic when I moved to Charlotte that I met Beth, who just graduated from UNC, not only with a bachelor's in accounting, but a master's in accounting. She was in a 5-year program.
Awesome.
So she had 2 more UNC degrees than I did. I tried to catch up a little bit later when I did an MBA at Chapel Hill in the late 90s. So we are both UNC fans.
Okay.
And we both have always had I can't use the word hatred, but we're not fans of Duke, let's say. So
Yeah.
in our family, it's equally fun to watch a UNC win or a Duke loss, or even better when it actually happens in the same game.
Yeah.
So no rivalry there. When Notre Dame plays UNC, I'm cheering for the Irish. She's cheering for the Tar Heels, but I'm not too disappointed if if the Tar Heels get the win.
Okay, so that's interesting, and like you said, no hatred because in your position, that's
We don't hate anything.
nothing. Of course not. But we did talk about Marist South Bend trip coming up.
Very exciting.
Which I'm
December 22nd. Mark your calendars.
Mark your calendar. Christmas Eve.
Yes.
Which I'm thrilled that got done. I did want to ask spots to eat in South Bend, so I'm going to be there 3 days. And I don't know where to go. I have never been to Indiana in my life.
You're in for a treat.
Yeah, Christmas in South. It sounds like a Hallmark movie, Christmas in South Bend. But where should I go? If you had 3 days, where would you go?
Yeah, we're gonna go to CJ's Pub downtown.
Okay.
That was a favorite haunt, and the best burger I've ever had is at CJ's. So
Wow,
It's a big statement.
it is a big statement, and
and you've been to every state.
You're gonna.
So-
I'm not sure I've had a burger in every state, but I have been to all 50 states, and CJ's is always a must when we're back. We spent a lot of time there as college students. The town's changed so much. I graduated 30 years ago. There's a whole development just south of the university now that wasn't there back then. So when I go back now, I'm mostly going to newer places that that weren't there when I was a student. But CJ's is definitely needs to be on your list.
Awesome. I'll push
All
for
3 days, just go to see.
CJ's.
I
All
don't,
3
I don't know that I don't think I would recommend a CJ's burger 3 days.
3 days in a row. Yeah,
I think
it might.
one's probably enough.
Yeah, I got to go to the game and report on it. So
Yeah.
I probably got to keep keep the cards a little lower.
It's a special campus. I mean, just spend time on campus. It's a beautiful place. It's cold, windy, and flat. So it's amazing that kind of campus was built on that terrain. But hopefully we'll get lucky with the weather, and you have a chance to just walk around. It's a really special place.
Well, cold, windy, and flat, cold, windy, and hilly. I mean, right here. So, I'm super excited. But as far as sports fandom, athletics at Notre Dame. Did you run at Notre Dame or was
No.
was
I was
athletics
not-
kind
I was
of
not D1.
right? I figured that, but just like on the side or anything like that. Or was that was your endurance athlete did that come after your college career?
I mostly gave it up in college, focused on college kid things, some of which we can talk about, some of which we can't. But I really,
Noted.
in the late 90s, ran a marathon when I was doing my MBA, and that's when I got back into endurance. Endurance events and picked up triathlon when I moved to New Hampshire. I took the job at Dartmouth in 2007 and did a bunch of triathlons for about a 6 or 8 year stretch from there. But no, my college years were focused on other things.
I was interested in that. You obviously, as we've talked about, have a lot on your plate. I mean, you do run a whole college, which is pretty important. But at the same time, you still have you set out time for you to be able to do the endurance training and all of that stuff. What is the importance of your physical health to you?
I'm really glad you asked that question because it's, no matter how important what we think we're doing is, we always have to find time to take care of ourselves. And when I run into students who are, in every club and, on the honor roll and doing research projects, I always say, are you taking care of yourself? Are you finding time to sleep? Are you finding time for exercise? Are you eating right? It's really important. There's nothing more important than that. So I do try to. I don't always succeed, but I do try once a day to swim, bike, or run. And sometimes it's, less time that I want, or it's on the bike trainer in the basement, but it's really important, and it helps me I hope be better when I get back to my desk. So it's I just encourage everyone to never feel like you're too busy to take care of yourself.
Oftentimes, a sport like that, like an endurance sport like that, it's often a release. For stress and just getting out. You have a very busy life. You had a very busy life. What did endurance running mean to you during your career of getting several degrees and throughout your career? I guess. What did it mean to you?
Yeah, it's I don't know that I'd call it a release as you say, but it's nice to take a break. These are individual sport. I mean, of course you can go running with others and cycling with others, but for the most part, you're there, by yourself with your thoughts, and it's a nice chance to clear my head or to think about what's on my schedule the next day. It's nice just to again take care of yourself and to do so in a way that is in a weird way relaxing. I mean, if you're hammering a run or a cycle, I mean, you're obviously working really hard, but it's also very relaxing and restoring.
What made you do all three? Run, bike, swim?
Yeah, well, so I've always run, and when we moved to New Hampshire in 2007, the roads there are just perfect for road biking. So I picked up a road bike from a friend, and then at that point, you're 2/3 of the way to a triathlon. The town that we lived in New Hampshire, as any New Hampshire town has a lake, and so we did a lot of open water swimming in the lake, and then started racing. First at sort of the sprint and international level, and then ended up doing 9 half-iron triathlons over about a 5-year stretch.
Not too bad.
I was unfortunately, I had a pond. I think they called it Lake Potanipo, but it's essentially a pond. But yeah, every town in New Hampshire has some sort of small body of water where you can open water swim.
Only for a couple months a year. It's
right.
pretty cold.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to turn people off the idea of living there. But I really found it interesting the places you have participated in races. Winnipesaukee, I saw that on the bio, and I was like, oh, well, that's pretty cool. But favorite place you've competed?
Yeah, so I did 4 of the 9 half irons were at Winnipesaukee. I can't remember the name. Not Timberman. Might have been Timberman half iron triathlon. My favorite place though is Montreal. There's a half iron triathlon there that is where the cycling course is the Formula One track. It's 2.7 miles. You do it 20 times on the bike, and the swim is where they had the Olympic rowing when Montreal hosted the Summer Olympics in '76. There, so it's an urban race, but it's one with a really unique course. So we did that one several times. Really, really fun.
Oh.
Can we talk about the swimming, because you have swam in the Hudson, which I know is against.
Yeah, we're not going to recommend that to Marist students.
But you did it with the Marist swim team, and it was all part of a big fundraiser. So along with the swimming in the Hudson, you've done other things. You've traveled to Ireland with the women's basketball team. You've been involved with a bunch of different athletics teams and tried to show your support as often as possible. What I know, obviously, you enjoy sports, and it's also a part of your duty as a president, but what kind of gratification or satisfaction does it give you to be around the athletics teams?
Yeah, as we mentioned before, I mean, they pour so much of themselves into their sports. So it's, part of me is there as a fan. We've got 23 D1 programs, and these are student athletes at the very highest level, both in the classroom and in their sport. So it's fun to take a game in, and I really encourage our students to go to their games, to cheer on their fellow classmates, and they're going to find they'll have a terrific time. I'd never seen a 6-on-6 volleyball match before. How much fun is that?
Yeah,
the power, the energy, the
got some good
determination.
players. They've had quite a roster the past few years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Being the beat writer last year for them and knowing nothing about volleyball other than some of my friends played in high school, and you go there, it's a very like if you want to see a good college sport and like a good the families are very very enthusiastic, just like the energy. I mean, every point it's so hard to write because every point feels like it matters.
Absolutely.
And that's why I loved reporting on it. Obviously keeping any bias aside, I just loved the sport in general. I really did. And now one of our prodigies, Ben, is on the beat. But yeah, it just was really awesome.
Shout out Bleed.
It was really awesome just getting a sense for it.
And it's the same with all of our sports, right? I mean, this is high quality entertainment for anyone, whether you know anything about the game or not, and it's a chance to support fellow classmates, the students, my students who are here, and so it's.
I think we should touch
checks
on
all the
that.
boxes.
Why? I don't think it's a Marist specific thing, but I think it as the MAC as a whole, it doesn't have a lot of attendance. But for Marist, how can we get more students? Because we follow Marist Athletics pretty closely, being that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And it's high quality of play, it's entertaining, and I feel like it's just a good way to get out of the school and be able to go do something else that doesn't really take up too much time. So how can Marist, the student body, be more involved with participation as fans of the teams?
Yeah, it's a great question. Of course, I would like to see the stands full at every game and competition because, again, the student athletes deserve our support, and it just raises the energy level, right, when they're playing in front of a large, enthusiastic crowd. There's so much competition for your time. Not to make excuses for students here, but it's even I find I can't get to as many games as I want because of the various demands on my time, and I know students are they've got their own clubs and activities. They've got 4 or 5 classes. They're looking for internships and so forth. And they're just having fun as college kids, and that's great too. I think some of it I would like to see organic, students saying, "Hey, let's go to the game tonight," and walk down the hall, grab 3 or 4 friends, and go watch a game. Some of it is, we've got to be, maybe more clever in how we market and how what kinds of promotions we put on and give students a reason to go to the game. For example, I know it's a club team, but the hockey, the Pink in the Rink game. Is jam-packed, and maybe some of those folks go to their first ever hockey game and say, "Hey, well, this is pretty cool," and then they end up going to more games later. So, finding ways to draw students and faculty and staff to games in ways that they may find they'll come back again and again.
Yeah, that's really interesting and something as journalists we always, it's assessment of the crowd plays into the story. Obviously, a crowd can make or break a game. So we're always talking about, what an attendance likes at a game. I did want to go more into just kind of hammer down on, your relationship with athletics. When you got here, one of your mission statements was increasing diversity at the school. And the job's not done until the school statistics match kind of, the nationwide stuff. Maybe talk about the importance of diversity with athletics here. Because I found that really interesting in your own mission statement and how it applies to maybe, let's say, athletics.
It's a fascinating question, one that we can spend a lot of time talking about. And I like the way you phrase it. It's very similar to the way that I try to put it. Until our student body matches the demographics of the country as a whole, we haven't done our job yet, and we're not there yet. As we become focused on appealing to non-traditional students, first-generation students, students of color, and so forth. We've made some progress over time, but we've got much further to go. Athletics is interesting because since sports have become so specialized, they become very expensive, and to become D1 caliber, as I mentioned before, my own son, skating at the age of 3.
Hockey's like one of the most expensive sports.
Yeah, they're expensive. It's a lot of time, and so it ends up correlating with forms of privilege, which are really challenging. Now, by the time our coaches are recruiting the next class of student athletes, they're working with the talent that exists nationwide. So we really need to focus on more junior levels, youth sports, and making youth sports more accessible and more achievable for a wider audience. Because how many talented athletes, would be fantastic at hockey if only they had the opportunity that my son and others had.
Yeah, that's a great point, and because it's actually a very common topic we talk about in our classes here as far as for sports communication, accessibility, because it just happens to be equipment, where you're born, just region in general. I really like how you put that. It's not necessarily even a college issue; it's maybe the issue before. But I think another thing I want to talk about, other than like attendance, let's say, what would you say is your favorite part about the athletics here at Marist specifically, versus maybe other colleges you've been to, you've worked at, you've got studied at?
Yeah, so one of the differences here, of course, versus say in Notre Dame or in North Carolina is that the Power Five conferences. I mean, the caliber is they're in essence they're professional caliber athletes, and with some of the changes in the NCAA, they actually are professional athletes in terms of how they can monetize their success here. And we're D1, but we're at a different part of the D1 curve. So what I love about that is our student athletes are student athletes.
Yep.
Here, that they come here and they understand that this is a 4-year degree during which they'll have a chance to play a sport that they love and that they're very good at. Their motives are different than, say, somebody who's using college as a stepping stone to become a professional athlete. Now, we've had a few professional athletes ourselves, of course, in Jason Myers and Terrence Fidey and some others.
Still kicking it.
Yeah, so we can succeed at that level as well, but it's not the main reason why our student athletes are here. When I get together, as we meet frequently, the other presidents of the MAC institutions, we all share that in common, that we want to be focused on the student first, the athlete second, and have a balance and avoid some of the challenges that come with a almost professionalized college athletic model.
Yeah, I think that's important too, understanding the role of a conference, or of a level in Division One, because as you mentioned, there's such a wide spectrum now, especially obviously with transferring NIL. You kind of have to know where you are, not just like based on a conference, but like region. And I did want to ask as well, maybe a goal or an improvement you'd like to see athletics here accomplished in maybe short term, long term, because as you know, athletics is constantly, as the NCAA evolves, it creates new challenges for athletes, and retaining athletes, maybe just athletics here in general. So maybe what's one short term and one long term goal you'd like to see accomplished here for athletics?
Yeah, good question. I mean, I'm very competitive in everything I do. I don't want Marist to do anything in which we are not trying our very best to win. So, conference titles matter, and we have the most of any MAC school by a lot. We also have the most academic honor roll students by far of any MAC school. So, continuing to focus on winning on the field, on the surface, and also in the classroom is something that I want. But I also want to win the right way, and I want to for student athletes and coaches as they do to understand that it's a privilege to play a sport here at Marist, and they're representing the college in everything that they do, and so conduct matters as well. And I'm very proud of how Marist coaches and athletes have conducted themselves here over many years. Facilities is always a question around, do we have the best facilities for our student athletes? We don't have a track for our track team, and that's something we absolutely need to address. Our baseball field, softball fields need some attention. So, making sure that we're meeting our obligation back to our student athletes and coaches by providing them with high quality facilities so that they can be the best at what they do.
Yeah, I you know what? As far as facilities go, I found that McCann, the McCann Arena or McCann Center, I found that there are other teams in the conference that have bigger arenas, and it honestly hurts them. I think because you get a lot of for the fan attendance here, I think on those bigger games, let's say like opening night, or a senior day, maybe it's a big game before, last game of the season, I remember, men's basketball, not high on the standings, but there was still a lot of people there.
That was electric.
It was a great game. But as far as, the facilities go, I think it helps us that there's, I think the gym, it's high quality. I'm currently actually writing an article on the history of the surface, and how it used to be not even wood. But as far as like facilities in general, I think the arena itself it fits very well to this conference versus like other schools where they have much bigger, and it's like, well, what attendance are you expecting? You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I mean, look at, we talked before about Duke and North Carolina, right? The Cameron Fieldhouse is the most exciting place to watch a basketball game in the country. And the Dean Dome just down the road with 24,000 seats, even when it's full, it feels like an NBA arena as opposed to, that intimate college feel. So, yeah, I mean, having facilities that are sized appropriately for the kinds of, attendance that we're going to have is important.
Since you've been here, there has been quite a bit of success with, I'd say, recently the men's basketball being in the conference final. Obviously, they came up short, but it was a great run, especially from where they started to where they finished. And then you also had the softball team. They won their conference championship. They went to the NCAA tournament.
Dominated
lacrosse,
their tournament. Lacrosse, yeah.
And lacrosse, men's lacrosse. How exciting is it when one of our teams wins the conference championship for you? And I'm sure you are able to brag to all the other presidents that you were at the top and everyone else was below you. But how exciting is it for you to see your school be represented at a bigger stage?
Yeah, and like I said before, I want to win. Our coaches want to win, right? And this is a whole lot more fun when we win. Best example here, about a month after I arrived, was the men's soccer team winning the tournament last year and doing it on our home field.
Boy,
how incredible was that? The students got to celebrate with the student athletes, and again, they work so hard. You just see the relief and the joy when it all comes together. And what all these teams that we just talked about share in common is they got better as the season went on,
Yep.
right? Even the men's basketball team, it just felt like they were getting better last year, and the record didn't reflect what their potential was. I don't believe the softball team, the lacrosse team, or the men's soccer team were the top seed in any of those. Well, the soccer team must have been because
soccer was, yeah.
But they just got better as the year went on, and that's a sign of great coaching. When a coach is learning the team and the team's learning the coach and they're coming together as the year goes on. So it's a joy. I try and step back a little bit because it's about that moment's about them, but it's a lot of fun to celebrate with them, either at the game itself or when we celebrate them afterwards, in a ring ceremony or a meal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I not to recall memories, but I was a freshman when men's soccer won. That was 2 months. I want to say 2.5 months into my college career,
November, right?
And still trying to figure out what I want to do, what I want to cover. As far as like what do I want to do in the sports world, and then you see a game like that at a small mid-major, where like I said, I don't think I had a voice the next day. Wow, it was really a great memory. And one that I'm a tour guide on tours. I tell that, like, when people ask, what are the games like here? Well, let me tell you about the bigger ones here, and my own personal experiences, and that's just incredible to me. That even a school like that can keep those memories, and I hope that as the years continue, that other more and more students can see that, and get to that, like you said, kind of organically. We are gonna we're gonna start wrapping up soon, but I did want to kind of dive back into Notre Dame Marist.
Yes.
So what are you looking? What's your outlook on this game? First off, what's the Kevin Weinman? Give me the Kevin Weinman preview on this game.
Well, I'm really excited for it. I hope the players and coaches are as excited for it as well. It's right before the Christmas holiday, so it's tough timing, but it's a great opportunity for the team to play on a storied court. So Notre Dame at one point at least had more wins against number one ranked teams of any team in the country. So while they have not gotten over the hump and won a title, they've been terrific for a long time, and I hope they'll enjoy that. As far as the game itself, we're catching Notre Dame at a good time. They've just had a coaching change. And lost a few players as a result of that to the portal. So I'm not going to make any predictions.
Cormac Ryan. He actually went to UNC.
Cormac Ryan's at UNC now. Yeah, he was a Notre Dame 3-point shooter for
his run in the tournament. I actually have a sweatshirt on.
Wow.
We have a prop here. How about this? Oh, nice.
Wow.
I love it. I love it.
Had to bring it on. Wow.
For my first time in the Notre Dame campus, I'm going to leave all the Notre Dame gear at home. All Marist red.
That might be in your best interest.
I would love nothing more for Marist to get a big win, and I like the way our team is playing, and again, they're catching Notre Dame at a time when we're going to give them a run.
Yeah, playing the Weinman alma mater run. I mean, I was at the game in Durham. That was a great game. Just from an entertainment, from a individual standpoint, I thought that was an unbelievable game, and lost by 3. But kept up with an America East school. Even that is like, that's promising especially for a team that loses your best scorer. By the way, outside of center field in-house guest, you're our second guest to Patrick Gardner, who is our first guest on this podcast. So pretty similar athletes too, you two.
Same stature.
Both can shoot the 3 ball.
I'm about a foot shorter and significantly less talented.
But yeah, I think getting this team exposure to the ACC is incredible, and a common theme for every team we cover is that in this non-conference schedule, this goes for volleyball too, and baseball, softball, is like playing harder, more difficult opponents, which I think for a smaller program like this is a slam dunk. No pun intended. But you're challenging the team itself. You're not, necessarily, I don't want to say like easy, you're not going for like easy win against other schools. It's still a game you have to play, but you're going for, a tougher challenge, and you're getting exposure at a higher level. So I think it's really a slam dunk for a team like Marist to play an ACC team in the non-conference. Like, it's not going to hurt them. They're going to, and it just, it makes sense.
There's an opportunity.
For fans, or just students at Marist, I don't think most of them really understand that, though. Like, they see the overall record, and they're all turned off by it because it's usually not very good because they're playing better teams. But the overall record is not what matters, and I think more people need to realize that. It's the MAC tournament that they're trying to play for, and the non-conference games they play before MAC starts is preparing them to be successful in the MAC, and I don't think that there's a lot of people that understand that.
Yeah, it's a good point, right? When you go, if you go 2-8 non-conference, there may be a sense that, hey, this team isn't where it needs to be, and then you have a nice run in your conference because you're playing like-size competition. I mean, different coaches have different philosophies on how to use the non-conference schedule. This is not my area to meddle in. This is for the athletic directors and the coaches, athletic director and the coaches to talk about. And some coaches want the toughest talent they can play against and get their teams ready that way. Others want to build a little more confidence and through a schedule that might not be as challenging. I am glad they were receptive to a game at Notre Dame, and that Notre Dame was receptive to us, because I think it is an opportunity. It presents an opportunity right now. Whether Notre Dame is where they've been in the past or not, it's an opportunity to get a big win and to have exposure at another level.
Are they winning their bowl game? This is for football, but
we don't know who they're playing yet, so we know they're not going to be playing one of the New Year's Six games.
Once they lost to Louisville, it was.
Yeah,
season was a wrap.
I was
a tough Ohio State game too. Oh my goodness!
I mean, they lost it on the last play, right? I mean, that was a game they could have won.
Coming out of the timeout with only 10, not a good sign. But Estime's great, and Sam Hartman
for one more year. Yeah. Estime, yeah. It's been a strange team. I was out for the Pittsburgh game. I don't get to take in many games anymore because of my day job, but they won the game 58-7. You would have thought they were, a top 10 team in the country, and then the next week they go off and lose to Clemson. So it's they've been up and down, but I like the new coach. I think they're heading in the right direction. Schedule's just brutal, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, games that don't look hard at the outset, like Louisville, become hard, and other games that look like they were going to be a real challenge, like USC, end up not. So it doesn't matter what their schedule is; it's going to have 3, 4, 5 really tough games, and to win, all of those tough games is it's going to be a rare thing.
I was today's day's old when I learned that there's a player in Notre Dame with the first name Marist, and I think that is hilarious. And he's going to get drafted. He probably will get drafted in the second, third round. I'm not a huge like college football fan, but learning that was hilarious. Anyway, I did want to kind of touch on one final thing or a few final things. You've been very supportive of us, of center field in general. And just press in general. And, you know, I think it's really cool we get this opportunity to go down there and cover this game and just kind of try to expand more in general as far as our coverage goes. As a president of college, how important or what kind of describe the importance of student journalism on a college campus, you know, free press on a college campus, I'd say.
Well, it's never been more important, and I always am impressed with the work that the Circle does.
Absolutely.
Sports Comms does as well. And it's the stories that are, for sports journalism, the stories that are sort of off the field that make a real difference, you know, so that the work that you did on the playing surface at Tenney, right? I mean, that's an important topic and really great for students, aspiring student journalists to cut their teeth on writing an important story, one that causes conversation and can actually change how things happen at their school. Likewise, the Circle. You know, the more important the story, the better. And if there's something that we're not hitting the mark on, I hope and expect the student journalists are on that, and I welcome it for sure. So, so just really impressed with the work that you all do, and again, the time, as I talked before, the time and effort that you pour into your classes, but also into these side endeavors is really impressive for me to see.
I think one of our main goals is to create conversation. You know, conversation is healthy, and you know, obviously nobody's perfect, but it's the conversation that creates change, and that's kind of, you know, as student journalists, kind of one of the perspectives we look at it when we follow the Society of Professional Journalists guidelines. It's like, you know, we just try to enforce, you know, ethical values, just like the Circle. And I really liked we've created a better relationship with the Circle this year, just a little more intertwined. Sam Murphy, who is the editor-in-chief of the Circle, is also an editor for Center Field. Yeah. So I think just in general, journalism here is getting stronger. Because we want to tell those stories as, you know, fairly and accurately as possible. And we appreciate your support all the way through. I think that's going to be it for us. We could talk probably 4 more hours without losing a topic on sports in general with you. But
and it's impressive. Like, he's able to, you have quite a knowledge of sports. Like, you've been on point with all the years.
Toe to toe with us.
Yeah, it's very impressive. Especially considering
those brain cells could be used for more productive ways. But
you could also say that with everything that you do have going on, you're still able to keep up with everything else. So I'm happy that we have a president who is supportive of obviously everything that we do. Athletics, just for our 2 cases, is something that we're passionate and have an important value on. So I think you've done a great job since you've been here, and we're very appreciative of you being on this podcast.
Well, thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be here. And, you know, sports is fun. It's important. It's, you know, a really key element of Marist, and I'm really pleased to be a president of a college that has a D1 program and a committed sports journalism program as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. I really, really appreciate it, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, see you in South Bend.
Yeah, of course. We'll have to do some content in South Bend, right? I mean, it's only natural. But yeah, signing off, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Take care.